What if China launched an invasion of Europe and won? Could the continent, rich in history and culture, survive under Beijing's rule? What would life be like for the people of Europe? And how would the world respond to such a dramatic shift in power? Let's explore why this could happen, how it might unfold, and what it would mean for the future of Europe and the world. Section 1. Why would China invade Europe? To understand this scenario, we first need to ask, why would China target Europe? China's rise to power has been driven by its economy and influence, but Europe represents one of its biggest challenges. The European Union controls one of the world's largest economies, rivaling China in trade, technology, and diplomacy. From a strategic perspective, gaining control of Europe would give China unmatched global dominance. Now imagine a future where relations between China and Europe break down. Trade wars escalate. Beijing grows frustrated with European alliances with the USA, and tensions over technology, human rights, and military power boil over. But there's another reason China might make such a move: resources and influence. Europe holds valuable industries, advanced technology, and key trade routes. Controlling Europe would allow China to dominate the global economy and secure its place as the world's leading superpower. The question is, how would they attempt it? Section 2. How the war might unfold. A Chinese invasion of Europe would start long before the first shots are fired. China's first move would likely be to use its economic power to destabilize Europe by weaponizing its control over supply chains and rare earth materials. Beijing could weaken European industries and governments, making the continent more vulnerable to military action. When the invasion begins, it would likely start in southern Europe. Using its massive naval power, China could deploy troops to key ports in countries like Greece, Italy, and Spain. These nations, already struggling with economic challenges, might be the easiest targets for a swift takeover. From there, Chinese forces could push north, using their advanced technology, cyber warfare capabilities, and overwhelming manpower to take control of Europe's heartland. Major cities like Berlin, Paris, and Brussels would become battlegrounds, with European forces struggling to hold off the sheer scale of China's military. But here's the thing, Europe wouldn't fall easily. NATO allies like the USA and the UK would almost certainly intervene, leading to a global conflict. The war would be brutal, with massive casualties on both sides. Section 3. Life under Chinese rule. Let's imagine that somehow, despite fierce resistance, China manages to take control of Europe. What would life be like for the people living there? Under Chinese rule, Europe's political systems would be dismantled. The European Union would be dissolved, replaced by puppet governments loyal to Beijing. National identities and traditions might be suppressed as China imposes its own values and systems. Economically, Europe would be transformed. Industries would be nationalized and repurposed to serve Chinese interests. Advanced European technology would be integrated into China's military and economy, while the continent's resources would be exploited to fuel Beijing's ambitions. For ordinary Europeans, life would change dramatically. Freedom of speech and the press, long considered cornerstones of European society, would be restricted. Surveillance and censorship, hallmarks of China's domestic policies, could become widespread. Protests and resistance movements would be met with harsh crackdowns, as Beijing struggles to maintain control over such a diverse and independent population. However, resistance would be inevitable. Europeans have a long history of fighting for their freedoms, and it's unlikely they would accept foreign rule without a fight. The occupation could spark widespread rebellion, forcing China to dedicate enormous resources just to maintain order. Section 4. The global consequences. The impact of a Chinese-controlled Europe wouldn't stop at the continent's borders. The global economy would be thrown into chaos as trade routes and supply chains are disrupted. With China dominating Europe, the USA and its allies would face an unprecedented challenge to their influence. Meanwhile, other nations might seize the opportunity to expand their own power. Russia could push into Eastern Europe or Central Asia, while nations like India and Japan might form new alliances to counterbalance China's dominance. But here's the bigger question: could China actually hold on to Europe? History has shown that empires built on conquest often collapse under the weight of resistance and rebellion. Managing such a vast and diverse population, with its own deeply rooted cultures and traditions, could stretch Beijing's resources and lead to internal instability. Section 5. Final thoughts and call to action. This scenario might seem far-fetched, but it raises some fascinating questions. Could China ever realistically invade and control Europe? What would life be like for the people living under such a regime? And how would the rest of the world react to this dramatic shift in power? What do you think? Is this a scenario that could ever happen? Or is it pure fiction? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy exploring provocative questions like this, make sure to subscribe to What Would Happen If, for more deep dives into the world's most fascinating hypothetical scenarios. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.